My name is Joe White, and I was in the, I don't know if you want me to follow up with that. I was in the Air Force from 65 to 69. It started out, I went to high school in the old Belmont High School, which was up on the hill. And I left school in 61 in the 10th grade. So I kind of chummed around. I was drafted. And then I got a draft deferment because I had an injured hand. And in the meantime, I searched around to join, so I joined the Air Force. Where I was, I served in Texas, and Texas. I never left Texas from the enlistment. I went to basic training in Texas, and then I went to tech school I was a jet fighter mechanic. I went to training there, and then they stationed me back in San Antonio at Randolph Field. So I never left Texas for my training tour. It was unique. I was in the Air Force, which is kind of the patent leather of the services. It's kind of and I only joined the Air Force because that's the only one that would take me. The Army would take me, but the Air Force was the only of the 4 or 5 branches that I tried that would accept me on, and I wanted to get an education of some sort. So I adapted pretty well. I had an 8-hour day job, and if you worked longer than, say I was repairing an aircraft and it took longer than your duty time, that you got comp time for it. So you never got paid more than, everybody got paid the same for the same rank. So you didn't get extra pay, you got time off, if you wanted it. Yeah. So I adapted pretty well. It was, I worked 3 months, 9 months on days and 3 months nights, and then 9 months days and 3 months nights. It was a rotation because they flew 12 hours a day. And it was a training base, and I was in my crew that we graduated from school, there were 10 of us, and 8 went to the flight line, and they worked on whatever specific aircraft they were assigned to. And another fellow and I were in aero repair, and we worked on everything. So we were like there's the gas station and there's the auto dealer. We were the auto dealer. We worked on the whole mass of aircraft that were on the base. And I spent, I think, 3 months, if my memory serves me, in ejection seats. And I was an ejection seat mechanic for 3 months, which is all you do is disconnect the ejection seat there's little canisters of gas that shoot you out of the aircraft. It was kind of elite duty because nobody, you were well taken care of because they didn't want anybody. You couldn't drink, you couldn't do anything. You just had to be a nice guy during that time because they wanted you to be passive so that you didn't make a mistake, because a mistake would cost somebody their life. So, but you had to be careful to remember that when you got out of there, you were a regular soldier again, so you didn't take advantage of your situation. I was brought up I was from a working class family, so that, it's funny, some of the people I was in with were upset that they were given orders and told what to do. And the people were melted from all over the country, so it's not from Boston. I'm New York and Iowa, and they were from everywhere. And the farmers were easily adapted to military life. It's the city folk that couldn't understand why they were being treated so poorly. And I'm in the Air Force now. I can't imagine what they felt like if they were in the real military.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Through letters, and it was easy because I wasn't away, so to speak. I was still in country. And I'm sorry, it's a bad term. I was still in the States. The Vietnam era was a tough era to come home to, but I didn't have that problem because I didn't come in from the coast like some people did. So we adapted. We're happy to be free, free of the military constraints. So and it's like, you did a job, and then I guess you'll experience if you go off to college and you go for 4 years, and then you come home and you'll decide whether you want to go to work here or there. And I was married. I married a girl from Belmont while I was in the service, and I had a son. So when I came home, I wasn't as free as I was freer than I should have been. but I wasn't as free as the single guy who could go out. And I wanted to go to school, but I couldn't go to school because I didn't have a high school diploma, so I couldn't get into college. A lot of things are done alphabetically. So, you get, the first thing they do is when you go in, I don't know if you're familiar with the entry, but the entry is you go in as what they call a rainbow. Everybody wears civilian clothes, and then they pay you. And then they give you a uniform, they take some money, and then they give you a haircut, and they take some money. So you pay your way. They pay you, and then you give it back. So, and I met a gentleman from New York. He's passed away now, but I met him in New York City, and the first time I flew was out of Boston. It was a propeller aircraft, and we went to New York and got on a jet and went to Texas. But I met him there, and I was with him the entire time, including the aero repair. He and I, his Van Anden, and I'm white, so we were alphabetically cut off and separated, and we served together. I drove home with him when I got discharged. So and we were buddies through the whole thing. We flew together. I got a pilot's lesson while I was in. So we flew together. He actually went back in. He came home. He had quit college, so he got drafted, so he joined the Air Force. And then when he was home, he went back. He was at Kent State when they had the issues there. And then he went back in and he retired as a major, I believe. So he spent 20 years in. Only the ones locally I knew. I other than just John and I didn't really chum up with him. I went up to New York. I ride a motorcycle. I went up to New York on a motorcycle event, and I went by his family's house to find him, and found out he had passed. So no, I didn't keep in contact with him. When you're in the military, you're not a free American. You don't realize that, but as soon as you step out of line, you say, you can't touch me. Oh, yes, we can. We own you. You can't get sunburned. You can't get tattoos at that time. There's a lot of things you were restricted, even though when you're in the military, you're in uniform 100% of the time, unless you have permission not to be. And you have what they call a Class A pass. And they issue them, and they can take it away. And if say there was a National Guard situation, they can call you and take that pass away, which means you can't wear civilian clothes. So you're a soldier 24/7 at that time. It never happened to me, but I never had a problem. And I being in the South, one of the gentlemen earlier mentioned that he was in the southern eastern states. Well, there was a difference between the southern eastern states and the mid-southern and Texas. Texas, I had no problem with. I have no prejudices, so they didn't show. But some of the other states that I had visited, it was tough because they're still fighting the Civil War. They still had this Yankee thing, but I didn't. I had no problem whatsoever. None. Enjoyed it. I wish I'd stayed. I didn't serve the full 4 years. You're in for when you join the military. You're in for 7 years, and then it's active Army. Army would be the least. It's 2 years or 4 years. And all the other branches are 4 years or 6 years, and you do that in increments. And the Air Force was 4 years, but they asked me, at one point they interviewed me for a re-enlistment, which was in May. I should have got out in January of 70, but in May of 69 they asked me, do you want to stay in? April, I guess it was. And I said, well, I don't particularly want to stay. And there was a bonus. You got $10,000 for staying. And I said, no, I wanted to stay, but the family didn't. So my wife wanted to go home. So if you stay, they're going to ship you somewhere. And I was too short for them to ship me anywhere and get any value out of me, so a month later they discharged me. So I got out in May of '69. And then I drove home. I waited for this. John was a flight instructor in small aircraft. We were both in the Army, in the enlisted ranks. We were both sergeants. So as opposed to, I wasn't a pilot for the military, I was a pilot personally. And he wanted to get his instructor's rating, so he waited, and I waited with him. My wife flew home, and then I drove home with him. I was a disciplined person growing up because I was brought up in a house with discipline, but I was also offered a lot of freedom, free thinking, and consequences. So it's basically what the military was. Is you took orders and you did what you were told to do. but the camaraderie was unique. I couldn't think of it's if you haven't been there, you don't know. Yeah, I joined the American Legion, and we're doing, the group of veterans are doing a monument over here on the pond. When I come out of the service, it wasn't, you weren't welcome in because of our opinions. You weren't welcome in the veterans clubs, because there were World War II veterans who were very patriotic, and then you had Korean veterans who were patriotic, and then you had the Vietnam veterans who were patriotic in a different way, and we weren't quite accepted. But I could care less. I bought a motorcycle, and I'm pretty much a free spirit, so